You did it again today. Something you needed to do. Maybe something you've been putting off for days, sat there, waiting. And you didn't do it. You moved toward it, then moved away. You opened the tab, then closed it. You thought about starting, then didn't. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you told yourself the same thing you always tell yourself. I'm lazy. Stop. Because what you just called laziness has a different name in every other field of science. In physics, it's called the principle of least action. In economics, it's called energy optimization. In evolutionary biology, it has a name that changes everything you think you know about yourself. In evolutionary biology, it's called survival. What are phi metabothome? Here's what nobody tells you about the human brain. It is the most expensive organ in your body. It accounts for roughly 2% of your body weight and consumes 20% of your total energy. Every decision, every deliberate thought, every act of willpower draws from the same limited fuel supply. Your ancestors didn't have a grocery store. They didn't have a reliable food supply. They had unpredictable hunts, failed harvests, and seasons where calories were the difference between surviving the winter and not. In that world, wasting energy was not a personality flaw. It was a death sentence. So the human brain did what evolution always does with a problem. It built a solution. A system so efficient, so deeply embedded in your neural architecture, that it operates automatically, completely without your permission. The system has one rule: never spend energy you don't have to. Scientists call it cognitive ease, and it works nothing like willpower. When your brain evaluates a task, it's not asking, is this important? It's not asking, should I do this? It's asking one question, at a speed you can't consciously track. Is this worth the calories? If the task is familiar, automatic, low effort, the brain green lights it. You brush your teeth, you drive the same route, you scroll the same app, no resistance, no friction. The energy cost is low enough that your brain barely registers it. This is why habits feel effortless and new behaviors feel excruciating. It's not motivation, it's metabolic accounting. A habit is a neural pathway your brain has optimized so many times that the energy cost is nearly zero. A new behavior is an untested route, unknown terrain, and your brain prices unknown terrain expensively because in the ancient world, unknown terrain killed people. But if the task is new, complex, ambiguous, or requires sustained focus, the brain fires a completely different signal. It creates friction, resistance, a vague, wordless pull toward anything easier. That pull, that's not weakness, that's your brain doing its job. In a 2018 study published in the journal Current Biology, researchers at University College London found that when humans are given the option between a high-effort and low-effort task, the brain consistently, automatically, steers toward the path of least resistance, not because of laziness, because a dedicated neural circuit calculates the energy cost of each option and redirects behavior accordingly. They called it the effort-based decision-making system. It runs in the background of everything you do, and it was built not for modern life, but for a world where every calorie counted. Wonnery Kenny Hound. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. That system, the one that's steering you away from the report, away from the gym, away from the difficult conversation, is not broken. It is working perfectly. It's just working for a world that no longer exists. Your brain cannot tell the difference between avoiding a saber-toothed tiger and avoiding a spreadsheet. Both register as high cost. Both trigger avoidance. Both produce that same flat, slightly anxious feeling of not starting that you've probably been calling laziness your entire adult life. And here is the part that changes everything. The animals that built the best energy conservation systems didn't just survive, they dominated. Lions sleep 20 hours a day. Not because they're lazy, but because hunting costs more energy than almost any other activity they perform. Hummingbirds enter a state called torpor every night, dropping their heart rate from 1,100 beats per minute to 50, to conserve exactly enough energy to survive until morning. Bears hibernate for months, burning fat reserves so precisely calibrated that they wake up at exactly the right biological moment. These aren't lazy animals. These are masterpieces of efficiency, and the mathematics behind their behavior is identical to yours. A 2019 study from Stanford University measured the caloric cost of cognitive work, specifically the kind of focused, deliberate thinking required to solve complex problems. The findings were striking. Sustained mental effort burns significantly more glucose than passive rest, even though the brain's total energy consumption stays roughly constant. The difference is in where the energy goes and how quickly it depletes available reserves. In practical terms, thinking hard is physically expensive. and your brain evolved in an environment where physical expenses had physical consequences. Your avoidance is the same system, the same evolutionary logic, the same ancient math. But here's the part nobody tells you, and this is where your brain gets genuinely interesting. That system can be fooled because it doesn't evaluate tasks objectively. It evaluates them based on what it perceives the cost to be. And perception, unlike physics, is changeable. In 2011, researcher Roy Baumeister demonstrated something that became one of the most cited findings in behavioral science. Willpower is not a character trait. It is a finite resource, more like a muscle than a moral quality. It depletes with use, replenishes with rest, and is heavily influenced by blood glucose. In other words, the reason you can't start the hard thing at 9 p.m. after a full day of decisions is not that you lack discipline. It's that you've literally spent the resource that makes discipline possible. Your brain is doing the math correctly. It's just doing it on bad inputs. And here's what that means for you, right now, today. The brain can be given better inputs. A task that feels impossibly large, the kind that triggers pure avoidance the moment you think about it, feels enormous because the brain is estimating its energy cost as a single undifferentiated block. But break it into the first 2 minutes, just the first 2 minutes. The brain reevaluates, the energy estimate drops, the avoidance signal weakens, and something genuinely remarkable happens. You start. Because starting is the only part the brain was actually afraid of. This is not a productivity hack. This is evolutionary biology. Your ancestors didn't kill the entire mammoth in one motion. They identified the first cut, made it, and let momentum do the rest. And momentum, it turns out, is another thing evolution built into you. Neuroscientists call it the progress principle. The brain releases small amounts of dopamine every time it perceives forward movement toward a goal. Not when you finish, when you move, even slightly. Your ancient brain rewards starting the same way it rewarded every small survival win: finding water, making fire, moving one step closer to shelter. The dopamine system doesn't know the difference between surviving a winter and finishing the first paragraph of the email. It just knows forward movement means the strategy is working. Which means the thing you've been calling laziness isn't the absence of motivation, it's the absence of a first step small enough that your brain agrees to take it. So the next time you catch yourself sitting still when you know you should be moving, the next time you close the tab instead of filling it in, the next time you feel that vague, heavy pull toward anything that requires less, remember this: you are not lazy. You are running a 300,000-year-old energy management system in a world it was never designed for. Your brain is not failing you. It is doing exactly what it was built to do: protect you from spending energy you might not be able to replace. The problem isn't the system. The problem is that the world changed faster than evolution could follow. Saber-toothed tigers don't exist anymore. Scarce winters don't exist anymore. The caloric math your ancestors needed to survive has been obsolete for 10,000 years. But the brain that solved that math, it's still running. Right now. Inside you. Applying 300,000-year-old survival logic to your morning to-do list. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not lazy. You're efficient. And the question worth asking isn't why you can't force yourself to do things. It's why we built a world that asks your ancient brain to behave like something it was never designed to be. That's what this channel is. Every week, one behavior that feels like a personal failure, explained by 300,000 years of getting it exactly right. If your body has ever done something that made no sense to you, we'll show you exactly why. To the version of you that lived before all of this, it made perfect sense.